Hello and welcome back to another week of the Pop Pod. I am Sam, also known as Pop Sam Cam. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to talk about the artists who are set to rule the summer, if there are any, and I'm also going to respond to some tracks that you said on my socials ruin an otherwise perfect album. You've given me examples from Lana Del Rey, Lady Gaga, Dua Lipa. Lots of that to get into later on in the show. Firstly, apologies for not having a bop or flop last week. Jono, the producer, was sick and I had a little chin injury, but we are back on board this week and there is lots of new music happening this week, including a Miley Cyrus album at the end of the week, which we will definitely cover on Bop or Flop on Friday extensively. If you like this kind of stuff, if you love talking about pop music, hearing about pop music, please follow or subscribe to the podcast. And also, if you could do me a massive favor and rate it 5 stars wherever you're listening to it, it really helps with the visibility of this podcast, given that it is so new. Also, if you want to talk more about anything that we address on the podcast or just pop music in general, you should hit up the Discord for the Pop Pod. I will drop that link in the show notes below, but let's get into, usually we get into the news, but it is a long weekend in the US. There is not that much news to discuss, to be honest. So firstly, I'm going to tell you on Thursday night, with a split chin, I went to Beyoncé, the Cowboy Carter tour. I didn't see the Renaissance tour, actually. This is my first time seeing Beyoncé since I saw her at Coachella back in, I couldn't even tell you what the year was, but the Beachella year. I was very excited to see this show. I am a fan of Cowboy Carter. I would say if you're not a fan of Renaissance or Cowboy Carter, this show is probably not for you unless you like just marveling at the incredible performer that Beyoncé is, because it is very heavy on those two things. But I thought the show was incredible. I thought it was so impressive how she told the story of country music, black performers in country music, them being pioneers of the country music genre, and weaved it so expertly with Beyonce's own story. She's never very explicit about her struggles or about her story really, because she doesn't give interviews, she doesn't explain the music, and you're left to try and pull apart pieces from that. But it's clear that Cowboy Carter is really to tell the story of how she got to where she is today. And I think the show does a phenomenal job of doing that, and also just celebrating her career in general too. If you saw my TikTok review on the show, the thing that I was most struck by was her use of nostalgia, not as like a kind of gimmick, but rather as a tool for storytelling and a tool for like envisioning a future where country music is much more expressive and much more open and much more accepting than it has been since it was basically stolen from black performers, which I just thought was so cool, because the country music thing obviously has been done so much in the last year, 2 years, and it's often kind of an outfit. There's something really sort of fun about reimagining country, which has been so, so kind of conservative over the past, since I've been alive, basically. To reimagine that in a kind of a camp fashion has been fun for people, and obviously that's totally fine. But I think there's also something really cool to there being some substance behind the nostalgia. And Cowboy Carter is exactly that. She's doing the whole country thing. She's putting it all on: the cowboy hat, the boots, everything is there. But it feels so authentic to her and her story, and it feels so purposefully used in doing this at a time in a particularly, turbulent time for America, I suppose. Her doing all this and envisioning a future that is much more liberated, it was very cool to watch and very powerful to watch. And she is just, her performance aura is on another level. It's insane to watch. If you want those thoughts explored a little bit more, I recommend going and checking out my review on TikTok, because I perhaps talked about the nostalgia element a little bit more eloquently, but I was particularly struck by that element. So I guess that is the news for today. There is a chance that I'm going to go back and see that show again this week, so I will keep you posted on that. Next week, I'm going to be at Primavera Festival in Barcelona. Troye Sivan, Charlie XCX, Sabrina Carpenter, Chapel Roan, Haim, FK Twigs, all playing. I will bring you all the action from there, not to sound like a sports reporter. I'm sorry. That was a little lame. But I will be there and I will be updating on it. So make sure you follow me on TikTok or Instagram if you want to see more of that. Let's get into the show today.
Now he's thinking about me every night. Oh, is it that sweet I kiss so?
I have previously said that I don't think there is a strong frontrunner for Song of the Summer this year. And I still kind of feel that way in the sense that last year we very much had the Brat movement. We had Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso and we had Chapel Roan's Good Luck Babe already out and already doing well by this stage. It was very clear who was going to kind of own the summer. And I don't really get that vibe this year. Like there's nothing that's really sticking out to me, mostly because a lot of the big projects that could have done it came out either at the tail end of last year or early this year. I'm talking about Kendrick Lamar, Bad Bunny in that sense. And even Lady Gaga as well. Her project came out a couple months ago. So there's no real like front runner for me. Nobody who I'm really feeling the heat from and being like, this is going to be a really exciting summer for them. They're going to be played absolutely everywhere. But I do want to run through a couple people that I feel like are emerging as potential frontrunners right now. And then also talk about the albums that are still to come that have a lot of potential to do it. If you've got any ideas on this, you should throw them in the Discord about who you think is going to own the summer, or you can drop them in the comments wherever you're watching or listening to this. But the first one that really stuck out to me when I did say there's no Song of the Summer, and one I felt bad for not mentioning because to me it's the most obvious contender right now, is Ravyn Lenae's Love Me Not.
And oh, it's hard to say you, but I wish you were right here. Oh, it's hard to leave you when I get you everywhere.
I've been talking about this song a lot on the podcast. It has such a beautifully summery vibe. It should have been the Song of the Summer last year, but it's taken a year for people to catch up on it. Ravyn Lenae's Bird's Eye, her second record, is just a beautiful R&B pop record. And she just has this aura as a performer that it's not similar to Sabrina or Chapel because it's much more refined and almost like delicate in a way. Like it's less outlandish, and I don't mean that as shade to any of the artists I'm talking about. It's just a very different performance style. But she does have that kind of momentum that they have where she's been chipping away at this for a while, and it finally feels like things have fallen into line and people are falling in love with her for so many reasons other than just this song going viral on TikTok, because she is just a beautifully magnetic performer. So I really think that this could come to fruition for her. It is currently in the top 50 of the Billboard Hot 100 on the UK. It's number 2 on the charts. It could go number 1 if we could knock off another song that I think is worth talking about. And maybe because we come at everything from a pop perspective, I assume if you're listening to this podcast, you're of a similar ilk, that sometimes we don't catch the songs of the summer that don't really match our vibe. And one of those is Alex Warren's Ordinary. This song, Alex, was part of the Hype House, which once had Addison Rae in it as well. He's been chipping away at it for a while with this kind of like almost Christian rock / folk / pop sound, and it's really all come to it's all eventuated in this song Ordinary, or it's all come to fruition with this song Ordinary. You've definitely heard the song. It's been all over TikTok. It was basically made to be a wedding song. I think it was his wedding song. And it's very lightly religious, I want to say. Lightly religious in the way that it doesn't advertise itself as Christian rock, but it's slipped in there quite obviously, I think, and really fits with this movement in music where we seem to be returning to something way more conservative, which is confusing given that last year we kind of approached this whole folk country revival with sort of a modernist progressive twist. And I talked about that actually with Beyonce in terms of the artists who did country, and we saw it with Chapel Roan doing it with The Giver. And for some reason this year it's flipped completely the opposite way, where we are getting the most conservative, unoriginal version of it. And maybe Ordinary by Alex Warren is the song of the summer because it probably accurately depicts where we are as a culture right now in terms of what's dominating the mainstream. And it is a lot of these kind of songs. It's very interesting to consider. I mean, you can look at the charts now and you can see, like, I would say I could pick out 15 songs that are in this country kind of folk genre that are not doing anything particularly different with it, but are really, really rising to the top and really starting to make this weird kind of Mumford & Sons sound that we had back in the early 2010s, like late 2000s, big again with no real reason for it. There's no tweak to it to make it come back, but it's here. And Alex Warren's Ordinary, I guess if you were a betting man, is probably the number one like contender to be song of the summer, which is mind-blowing for me. Another one that is doing really well that is kind of in the country genre, but I guess is doing a much different slant on it, is Jessie Murph's Blue Strips.
Boy, mad, boy, mad, boy, mad at you. I had to get back at you. I had to get back at you, yeah.
You probably heard this all over TikTok. Jessie Murph has kind of like a Nancy Sinatra meets Lana Del Rey meets like, gosh, I don't even know, somebody in the country world who's similar to this, meets like some of the southern rappers as well. Like it's got a little bit of a trap feel to it too. It's a very interesting and I suppose somewhat divisive sound. Her voice is incredibly divisive. You're either going to love it or hate it, but there's no doubt that this song is a huge hit. It's currently number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100. I think it's going to continue to rise, and it also really feels like it could be the song of the summer. Like it does have a summery feel to it, and maybe it will be, it's certainly the song that's launching her as a mainstream star, but she could be having the sort of summer that Chapel or Sabrina had last year, and it shows that we are in a very, very different time. Let's move back to the pop side of it and talk about a couple there, because Lady Gaga is also another one who has been dominating the mainstream for the past couple months with her old and new material from Mayhem. I think Coachella was a massive boost. The show in Brazil was a massive boost. She's now doing shows in Singapore, and she has a pretty short run of Mayhem shows coming up for the tail end of the year. I would like to think that it's going to be a Gaga summer, but I'm just not sure what song is going to do that other than Die With A Smile, which continues to do big numbers, because Abracadabra, I think, has reached its peak now. I think it's falling back down, and I'm very interested to know what single she's going to launch off the back of this. I think How Bad Do You Want Me was the one that Spotify added to their potential songs of the summer list.
You like my hair, my ripped up jeans. You like the bad girl that got in me. She's on your mind like all the time, but I've got a tattoo for us last week.
And yeah, I could see that doing something, but it's going to need quite a major boost. As we've seen with so many of the big artists recently, it's so hard to launch a single off the back of the album being out after a couple months. Like everybody devours the album, and then after a month, it's basically already done in a certain way. So it's going to be difficult for Gaga to launch a massive single, but I certainly wouldn't count her out. Let's talk about some of the albums that haven't come yet that could do it, because we still have Haim, we have Lorde, we have Miley Cyrus this week, and we have Doja Cat, which is not announced yet, but is highly suspected to be coming in the summer. Haim are going to release their fourth album, I Quit. Relationships was very summery. To be honest, I think Haim have always made summer music. They haven't really ever dominated it in the way that they should. In terms of like, it's surprising to look at their mainstream success and see that really in the US, they haven't had a proper hit. And so in that way, it's difficult to imagine them taking over the summer in a mainstream sense, but maybe in an alternative sense. Yes, they're going to be all over the festival scene. I think that this album points to it being some of their best work ever, but I don't think that we're going to get a huge hit off this album, even though I think it could be a big critical success. Lorde is probably Lorde and Doja Cat are probably the biggest two contenders here. What Was That, I think, definitely had a summery feel to it. I don't think it did as well as people thought it was going to do.
Since I was 17, I gave you everything. Now we wake from a dream. Well, baby, what was that?
But I feel like she could have some great stuff still to come. We know that Man of the Year, the second single from the album, is due to drop this week. The teaser for me wasn't giving Song of the Summer, but maybe it's going to be an upbeat banger that it turns into something that we don't suspect. I am very excited to hear it. I think that given the summer that Charlie had last year, I think that Lorde is the most closely aligned to Brat coming through with a new project this year. And I think that a lot of people will be wanting to see a Lorde summer. And maybe it could happen in the way that Brat happened, where the album was more the moment than any singular song. Obviously, Brat had 360 and Apple and Guess that did incredibly well, but she didn't have a top 10 record off that album. So it could happen in that way, where there's just a deep admiration for Lorde this summer. Her new work and her old work, of course, Ribs is charting as well. So maybe it will be a Lorde summer. Doja Cat. I think that her music is so well suited for the summer. Obviously, Kiss Me More, Say So, both massive summer hits. She knows how to dominate that kind of area. And I think that given what Jealous Type sounds like, it could be really well suited to it. And if she releases that in June, I feel like it could really take over the whole summer. How many times do you think I'm going to say summer on this podcast? I'll be very interested to see how that one goes. And then, of course, we've got Miley Cyrus this week. I'm still surprised that End of the World didn't really do what I thought it would do, because that, I think, has a massive potential for it. I mean, just like the Sunset TikToks alone, I feel like it was made to soundtrack, but I don't think that any of the singles have had the momentum to suggest that she could get it. But I really think that this album is going to be really well critically received. And I feel like Easy Lover, the next single from it, could be the one to take off for her. But we have to wait and see on that. I wouldn't be betting a lot of money on it right now. The other one that I didn't mention that is coming is Addison Rae's Addison. I think Headphones On had a summer feel, but I don't think that it's really done as well as Diet Pepsi. I don't know if they're leaving the biggest song from the record until the record drops. If that's the case, certainly. I think that she has a cult following right now, and I feel like she is one more major hit away from being in the proper pop star conversation. And I think if she can just get over that hump, then it's really going to happen for Addison this summer. And I would love to see that as well, obviously. A couple things that have been floating around for a while that just will not die. And some of them I'm very happy they're not dying. Bad Bunny, his album that he released at the top of the year, my favorite album of the year so far. There's so many songs that could pop off from that. DTMF is doing still incredibly well, and I think that that's going to continue to burn through the summer. Nueva Yol, I think, has massive potential as well. Would love to see that happen. Party For You, Charlie XCX, a song we've been talking about so much on this.
I only do this party for you. Only do this party for you, for you, for you.
She's been talking a lot about how she doesn't want Brat Summer to end, and then out of nowhere, a song from How I'm Feeling Now, her 2020 record, blows up. And Party For You maybe encaptures this kind of weird, melancholic, trepidatious feel that there is to this summer. I don't know if you're feeling it too, but everything feels slightly less optimistic than last summer, and Party For You could certainly soundtrack that. There's a song from Chapel Roan's Midwest Princess, Pink Pony Club, which is still in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100.
God, what have you done? You're a pink pony girl, and you dance at the club, oh mama.
And I I think will continue to burn bright for the rest of the summer. And I'm just still hearing this pump out of car windows. I'm hearing it at every bar. I'm hearing it at every karaoke club. I think that we also need to look at Wiz the MC's Show Me Love, which now features Tyler on the remix, which has done incredibly well for the past few months and continues to be very high up on the global Spotify charts.
Show me I don't need no money, don't need nobody, just need your body.
We've also got Gnarly by Cat's Eye, which has done a very good job at shooting their profile higher and also shocking people.
Liberty, Tesla, fried chicken.
If Gnarly doesn't do it for them, I feel like their follow-up is going to be big because I don't think that it's going to be as sort of divisive as Gnarly is. I think that Gnarly was meant to be a PR stunt almost in a way. So I feel like Cat's Eye could definitely be an act that we're talking about a lot this summer. And then, of course, we've got Tate McRae. Sports Car would be the most obvious one, continues to do extremely well. But again, So Close to What is an album that came out very early in the year and has already kind of seen its peak, I think. So I'm not sure if that will actually happen. It's just so interesting to have a very different Song of the Summer conversation this year. I think last year there was so much excitement about what was going on in pop music. And it wasn't just the big artists who had released. It was like talking about all these fresh ones that were coming through. And there is like plenty of new music still to get excited about, but nothing that's getting the same kind of momentum behind it as what the Chapel Charlie and Sabrina moment had last year. So that's my guesses for Song of the Summer. Ravyn Lenae is leading it for me with Love Me Not. But I would love to know what your guesses are. What are we going to be hearing all summer long? Over the weekend, I asked you guys, what is a song that kind of ruins the run of a classic album for you? So what is an album that you absolutely love, but you feel like there is one song on it that is bad and way below the quality of the rest of the album? I would love to hear more submissions from you guys, and I'll drop the question in Discord so we can talk about this later as soon as this podcast drops. But I've put some of the best ones that came up, including my one, which I will lead with, which is, I think that on Norman Effing Rockwell by Lana Del Rey, Doing Time.
Me and my girl, we got this relationship. I love her so bad, but she treats me like shit.
Not ruins, but is kind of like a lead balloon in the track listing. And the reason I feel like this is because I feel like the songwriting, the tone, and the voice of Norman Effing Rockwell is so developed and so defined that throwing in a cover that really doesn't feel to me like it fits the themes of Norman, it just kind of like takes me out of the record for a minute. And to me, it almost splits the records into two halves, like before that song and after that song. I get that it's got the surf rock undertones that it picks up from Fuck It, I Love You, but it's just like as a cover of a Sublime song, I just don't think it fits with what she's actually doing on that album, which is much more ambitious and way more about like the social commentary within the kind of relationships that she's talking about. I just don't think that it has that vibe to it. And so for me, it does just not destroy, but it does interrupt the flow of the album a little bit. I know that like I posted it the other day and there were a few people who were arguing back on it. So I'm sure you have some opinions. So let me know. This is one that came up quite a lot. Lady Gaga's Mayhem, and everybody was saying Blade of Grass. For me, Blade of Grass doesn't destroy it. It's at the end of it, and I also think it's quite a sweet way to like not end the album because it comes with Die With a Smile, but kind of bring the album back down to landing. And I think obviously she had to address like her relationship with Michael that she's obviously crazy about in some kind of way. So I don't mind that one. The one that I think does it is The Beast.
Turn on the music, turn off the lights. Don't feel the beast inside.
I just don't. I think this song is so over the top, so melodramatic, so sludgy, and it comes off such a phenomenal run. Like to come off, for me, it's almost like Shadow of a Man is the end of the album because that run, like from track 1 to Shadow of a Man, is so phenomenal. And then the bass comes in and it just feels like heavy and weighty. And I just like can't get into it at all. And by then the album is kind of over for me in a sense. So the Beast is where I'm going with that one. Another one that you guys said was Me on Taylor Swift's Lover, which, yes, I absolutely agree. This is the worst single that she's ever released. And just like, I don't know why she thought that people wanted something like this. But I think to say that Me's the only one on Lover that disrupts the flow of it is like generous, because I feel like there are a lot of moments that do it. I Forgot That You Existed. It's Nice to Have a Friend. Gosh, there's so many. London Boy, You Need to Calm Down. And Lover is an album that I really, really like. I think there is like an amazing 11-track album in there, but there are so many lead balloons on that album. But yeah, Me is potentially the biggest one. I will give you that. Dua Lipa, Future Nostalgia. This one also came up a lot with everybody saying Good in Bed.
I know it's really bad, 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 bad. Messing with my head, 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 head. We drive each other mad, 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 mad. But baby, that's what makes us good in bed.
I think that Good in Bed is fun. I like it. I get it. But yeah, I don't think it really fits on the flow of Future Nostalgia, which has this like slick disco feeling to it. And Good in Bed has more of sort of like a very UK-centric Lily Allen kind of sound. I do like that her personality comes out in it. I do like that it's kind of cheeky, but yeah, it doesn't quite fit the flow of the rest of the album. And a lot of people also said Boys Will Be Boys too, and I would have to agree with that as well. I think those two songs are very much the most different songs on the album, and the ones that don't really fit with the thesis of what she's trying to do in the album as a whole. Which is interesting that she went with those two. I guess she was trying to like deliver some kind of diversity sonically on it, but I've heard a lot of the like demos that have leaked and the B-sides and things that ended up on the deluxe edition of the album, and she had songs there to just make this like 12 tracks of like absolute cohesion and mastery, and she didn't quite get there with those, so I will have to agree. This one I do not agree with at all, but it did come up a couple times, which is Chappell Roan's The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, and people said After Midnight.
'Cause after midnight, I'm feeling kind of freaky. Maybe it's the club lights. I kinda wanna kiss your girlfriend if you don't mind.
After Midnight for me is one of the slickest tracks on the record. Like, this is her doing her sort of disco say-so kind of vibe, but just bringing so much to it. I love the way that it feels a lot lighter than a lot of the rest of the stuff on the album. Like, maybe this is why people feel this way, because every song has this kind of like grandiosity to it and this weight to it that After Midnight doesn't have, because it just sort of floats by. But I feel like you need it almost like just as a palate cleanser at a point in the record, and it's fun. It's a bop. I love hearing it live. I really don't agree with that one at all. The other one that was coming up was Billie Eilish's Hit Me Hard and Soft, and people were saying Bittersweet. I agree that this is the worst song on the album. However, this is an album that I really wouldn't tinker with very much, because I love listening to it from start to finish. And while Bittersweet is definitely the least memorable moment on it, there is something about this album where it feels so tightly stitched together that I don't feel like I could physically remove any part of it, because it would just ruin it in some way for me. So the rest of the songs that we're talking about, I think, are ones that really disrupt the flow of the album and feel like they're almost like countering everything else that it is doing. And I don't feel that way with Bittersweet at all. So I'm going to disagree with that one. Someone has also said Lana Del Rey's Did You Know There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard, the interludes. And yeah, I guess if we're thinking of this as an exercise in like what album can be played from start to finish and you don't want to skip or change it in any kind of way, yeah, the interludes do totally disrupt it.
You get to like, you ever talk to somebody, I want a new life. I don't love my wife anymore. I don't love my kids anymore.
Because I think the first time I listened to it, I was like, oh, okay, this feels kind of profound. I like the emotional depth that it adds to the album. But every time I've gone back to it, I've wanted to skip it. And in a way, it's kind of split up the album for me, where I listen to the part before the interludes and then I listen to the part after, and I skip the interludes and Candy Necklace in the middle, because Candy Necklace feels like it's in this kind of like interlude jail of sorts where I can't break free from those two interludes. And it's just too much to listen to that pastor like speaking with that swirling hypnotic kind of production. It is honestly too much to come back to for repeat listens. So I'll co-sign you on that. My last one that I want to end on that I think kind of disrupts the flow is on Rihanna's Anti, the song Woo. I just have never been able to get behind. And I think it's because everything on Anti seems so singular to Rihanna, and I feel her voice and her artistic presence so strongly. And on Woo, I just hear Travis Scott. Like, it just feels like such a Travis Scott song. And while I think that her vocal delivery is pretty good, it doesn't have the same kind of Rihanna-esque flavor to it as the rest of the album does. So Woo's the final one that I'm going to end on there. I would love to hear more. I'll ask this question in the Discord as well, but DM me or also send a voice note to thepoppod at popsamcam. If you've got a voice note that you want to send and I can play it out on the show, you can do it about this segment, or you can do about it you can do it for anything in general. Can you tell that I've been out too many nights on this long weekend? DM me wherever you can find me. Let me know your opinions on this. I will see you again on Thursday for another episode where we're going to talk about an iconic pop album that has shifted up the way we think about pop music in some kind of way. If you want to go back, last week's episode was on Taylor Swift's Reputation. Until then, make sure you're following or subscribe to this podcast, rate it 5 stars, join the Discord. I will see you on Thursday. Thank you for joining me.